Okay, good evening, everyone, dear students. Today we are going to start our class basically on classical sociological theories by Karl Marx and Max Weber, who were the prominent thinkers of the early 19th century. They were the most important sociologists who have influence in understanding the society through the times of contemporary period as well as the present society as a whole. So last class we have done with the uh, class on Imad Durkheim, right? So today we are going to start with Karl Marx and Max Weber, okay? So just to go back to the last class, we have talked about Imad Durkheim, how he tried to understand society and how his understanding of social facts was an important in understanding the functionalist aspects, which he talks about coercive, externality, generality, and constraint against the individuals, right? So he sees society as a functional aspects, and we also understood how social facts such as division of labor, suicides, and understanding of religion by Durkheim is being his major works in understanding the sociology as a discipline, right? So today we are going to understand Karl Marx's idea of economy, class, social changes, Max Weber idea of social action, authority, and bureaucracy, right? So these are very important classical understanding to understand the whole view of other aspects of sociological discipline in the contemporary period. So objectives of the blocks are to understand Karl Marx's materialistic interpretations of history and society, to analyze to capitalism through concept of class, exploitation, and alienation, to explain social change through class conflict and economic forces. Again, in terms of block 4, we try to understand social action and the role of meaning in social behavior, to analyze power, authority, and bureaucracy in modern society, to explain the relationship between culture, religion, and economic life. So, block outcomes, you will, after understanding this lecture, you will understand society through material condition and economic structures of Max Weber, analyzing capitalism using class conflict and how there is an exploitation when there is rational capitalism, explaining social change as an outcome of class struggle. All right. So, in terms of block 4, interpret social action through meaning and motivations, understand power, authority, and bureaucracy, analyze the role of culture and religion in economic life. So, coming to Karl Marx, we will try to understand a brief view of his biography to understand in the context of what he tries to understand the society, right? So, he was born in German. And died in England in 1883. Key thinkers, thinker, philosopher, economic, sociologist. His major works were Communist Manifesto, Das Capitals. Okay, so what was his core idea? Right? We have to understand the core ideas of Max Karl Marx, right? Historical materialism, class struggle, capitalism critics, okay? Founder of conflict approach in sociology. So what is historical materialism? So I'm coming with a diagram that force of production, relation of production equal to mode of productions. So when you talk about the understanding of historical materialism, it is not about the material that you talk about. It is about the ideas, about the about the uh, context of histories that has taken place in terms of materialism. When you look about the principle of historical materialism, you see that according to his theory, it is understood that causes of social change and political upheaval is seen in change in the mode of production and exchange. So, force of production, relation of production equal to mode of production. What is mode of production? That is the economic basis, right? So, history presupposes that cultures always has a bearing on other elements of society like religion, art, life, and it is interrelated. Marx stated four stages in relations to the chains of mode of productions. The stages are primitive, communism, Asiatic, feudalism, and capitalism, and then comes the socialism. So he says that economic based is the mode of production, and whatever it consisted in that mode of productions are force of production, that can be a labor, relation of productions, maybe the capitalism, and the economic base, that is superstructure. So economic is the base superstructures of politics, law, religion, and economy. Okay, so it can be said that material conditions shape history, economic as foundation of society, history of class struggles. So, economic determinism in Unit 12, it is seen that base is the economy and superstructures are being influenced by the economic, that takes an important role in defining other aspects of superstructure. That is what Karl Marx mean to say or mean to define about the materialism, historical materialism, right? So state, law, education, religions are all dictated by the influence of economic based. So not only that economic determines social institution, that ideas reflects material interest, social sense begins in economy. So everything in terms of Karl Marx determined by economic determinisms. Okay. So when you come to Unit 13, structure of capitalist society. Okay. So bourgeoisie are the owner, then who are exploited or who are exploitations are done towards the workers. Those are known as proletariats. Okay. Proletariats are the one who are being exploited over a period of time by the bourgeoisie in terms of class conflict and um, class struggles. So you know that there are two dominant discourse in understanding the dialectical materialism of Karl Marx. Okay, so it is bourgeoisie and the proletariats who are owners and the workers. Okay, so key teaching points can be private ownership of means of production, wage labor system, class inequality in structure. So you know, when there is a rise of capitalism, when there is a ownership, when there is a privatizations, then there is obviously an exploitation that led to the workers' exploitations by the bourgeoisies, right? So when there is an exploitation, there is a class inequality in structural patterns, right? So coming to the Unit 14, we talked about the surplus value and alienations. Okay, so when there is an alienation, when there is an surplus value that is taking place by the bourgeoisie, then that would lead to the class consciousness by the proletariats, who are also known as the labor, worker, whatever, right? So exploitation through unpaid labor, capitalism dehumanized workers. So workers alienated from where they are mostly alienated from their product, process, sell others. So all the surplus value, all the profits are being taken up by the capitalist society, that are bourgeoisie, and all the waste paid to the alienated groups that are worker class are not to the some extent which they have given their wholehearted labor. So there is a cost of exploitation towards the proletariats. So it can be said to the dialectical changes that theses are the bourgeoisie, antitheses are the proletariats, and there is a synthesis. So when there is a cost of class conflict, when there is a exploitation, where there is a surplus value taken by the mode of productions that are bourgeoisie, then that would lead to the antithesis coming into the class conflict, that which Karl Marx said that there will be a socialism after capitalism, which there is a class conflict, then there would be a socialism, right? So what is the key teaching points again? Conflicts is engine of change, revolutions as outcome towards classless society. So the idea of Karl Marx was the classless society, which he has try to mention in his work, um, class and class conflict, or in a manner, what is that? The German ideology, or in his work of the economic and philosophical scripts, right? So these are the ideas of Karl Marx, which he takes into account and look the society, how it has been formed by the rise of capitalism and the rise of exploitation towards the alienated proletariats that led to the socialism or the classless society. So conflict is regarded, according to Karl Marx, as change, revolutions as outcome towards classless society. So let's come to Max Weber. Born in Germany, 1864, died 1920. Sociologist, economics, historians, he is regarded. So his major works is a Protestant ethics and the spirit of capitalism, core ideas, social action, authority, bureaucracy, rationalizations. So what is his contributions? Interpretive sociology focused on meaning and actions. So let's go to what types of social actions. Okay, social action theory is a theory that attempts to examine people action and the underlying reasons for those action. Below are four types of social actions proposed by sociologist Max Weber. Value rational action, action based on a commitment to a self or personal values or beliefs. Example, the pursuit of social justice. Then comes the affective actions, that is action based on emotion rather than rationality, crying at the death of an entire fictional movie character. So that can be affective actions. What is rationality? Purposive actions, goal-oriented action that occurs as a result of rational decision making. Example, firing lazy employees to save money. Eco-rational actions. Okay, rational, purposive action. Traditional action can be action based on rituals, traditions, and cultural norms. Example, putting up a Christmas tree on December 1st, traditional action. Okay, all right. So you understood, I think. So after that, you come power and authority. So power and authority. We are trying to understand what is power, what is, okay, power, authority, and how it is legitimized, right? So authority types, there are traditional, charismatic, and legal rational authority. Traditional authority, when it is based on traditional sanctity of customs and given legitimacy to those processing such as authority. Example, monarchy. Charismatic, this is based on the charisma of the leader, which is later recognized also. Example, Gandhi. Then what you talked about the legal regional authority, it is based on laws and rational action. As in bureaucracy, the organization is totally goal-oriented with specific area of action and authority, impartial with hierarchy and not related to customs or tradition in the given society it operates. So key taking point is that power, ability to impose will, authority, legitimate power. Okay, so you can say that power plus authority is equal to legitimacy. Okay, that's what Weber talks about when he talks about the authority. Okay, so when he talks of bureaucracy, he talks of authority and power, how it legitimize one social actions to be a part of the bureaucratic society. Bureaucracy, okay? So hierarchy, obviously in terms of bureaucratic structure, hierarchy, presence of hierarchy, rules and procedures, impartiality, merit-based recruitment. So when he talks of bureaucracy, it is about how the individuals or social behavior is constrained to those structures that it operates, right? So you see in terms of bureaucratic structure that hierarchy is there. You as a social being, as a social individual, you are constrained to follow the hierarchical status of the context where you are availing your jobs or employees activity. So there is rules and procedures which dictates an individual's social actions, right? So in that social action, it should be impartial and it is basically on merit-based recruitment. So merit-based plays an important role to understand the social actions. So bureaucracy is all about merit-based recruitment, rules and regulations, hierarchy, and impartiality. Okay, what can be the key taking points? Most rational organization efficiently through rules, iron gates of rationality. So I will just give an example of an government colleges or university where you see the students. Okay, so when you see the students, where you see the teacher acting as an efficiently as according to the rules which they are given to, right? So it is a bureaucratic which makes social actions to act in such a way that they are actually taking up the duties and rules of the certain given procedures that are to be acted and act accordingly. Okay, so Max Weber called it the iron cage of bureaucracy. Okay, that individual has to act accordingly according to the structures that it operates. Okay, so coming to next is the ideal types. That is the main work of Max Weber. He talks about the how ideal type is very important in understanding the social methodology or research in reality. Okay, so he is basically trying to understand analytical tool ideal types means reality abstractions to ideal types. So he talks about the reason, rationality, all that to understand a social phenomena. Okay. So he made a conceptual model known as ideal type, which is based on rationality, which is based on truth, which is to be justified, right? So not relative but comparative tools. He said that understanding social action, understanding interpretative understanding of social action needs to be understood through the lens of ideal type so that it gives a concrete rationality in understanding the society in it operates, and it is helpful in sociological analysis of the current phenomena. So his last major work is the Protestant Ethics and the Spirit of Capitalism. It is about the when he talks about the religious aspects in terms of Europe, he talks about how Protestant ethics raised to the rise to the spirit of capitalism, right? So Protestant ethics equal to hard work, discipline. So capitalist spirit is basically, I mean, the Protestant ethics where a disciples or hardworking workers of the religious are leading to the rise of capitalism. So whoever may be the priest or the members of the churches become legitimate because they work hard in order to occupy their positions, and their positions are related with the rationality and the rationality and the value rational activity authority which we talk about. So that is how it is obtained by the priest, by the church leaders, by the activist leaders in Europe. So he talks about the hardworking of the Protestant ethics, okay, who were the Protestant ethics of the church. However, they are having a good chances of hard work and discipline that led to the rise of capitalisms. Okay, so the capitalism in the religious aspects talks about how these religions supports capitalism indirectly or directly. Okay, so Protestant ethics, they try to occupy their positions, they act accordingly, which is moral value rational authority that led to the rise of capitalism uh, towards the church leaders or the workers of for the people in Europe. Okay, So key teaching points can be ideas influence economy, right? So in terms of Max Weber, you see economy determines ideas. However, in Max Weber, it is ideas that determines economy. So here it is moreover micro, whereas this Max Weber, Imad Durkheim, they are more of macro. That is how the structure determines individuals, social actions. But when you talk of Max Weber, it is the ideas influencing economy. Religion supports capitalism, right? Cultural explanations of change. So coming to the comparative ideas of Max Weber and Karl Marx, we can see that Karl Marx talk about economy, conflict, revolutions. Economy that led to conflict that led to revolutions. Okay. Weber, he talks about understanding interpretative actions and meanings and rationality that leads to bureaucracy. That's why he talks about that bureaucracy is the iron cage, which leads the individual to act accordingly, according to the value rational activity that led to the Protestant ethics. And with the kind of Protestant ethics, with the regions, with the positions that is inherited by the actions or by the social behaviors that can establish a legitimized rights of capitalism. Okay, so it is all about Marx, who talk of economics that determines society, whereas Max Weber, who talks that meanings, rationality determines bureaucracy. So micro by Karl Marx and Imad Durkheim, macro by Imad Durkheim and Karl Marx, whereas Max Weber talked about social actions, which is more about micro. Okay, so you have to understand like that to understand the discipline of sociology, the classical sociology, which is the very important and core aspects that one needs to understand, that student needs to understand in understanding the later contemporary sociologists or the other aspects of sociology all about world. So classical thinkers, these are the most important ideas that has been generated towards the other parts of the knowledge building in sociology. So that's it for today. So coming to the conclusions, Marx and Weber are key classical social thinkers. Marx emphasized economy and class conflict, right? Weber highlights social actions and authority that led to the Protestant ethics and rise of capitalism. How bureaucracy is very important in order to remain and authorized and utilize power and legitimacy, right? Power and authority is equal to legitimacy, right? So their theories explain structure and meaning in society. Concept remains relevant in modern society. So as you know, their ideas, their concepts, their theories are relevant till today in the contemporary society. That's why they can't be forgotten. Their ideas are always imparted by the postmodernist or the post-structuralist society in Europe, America, and India. So let's check your progress. Like after going through all these classical thinkers, the major questions which might be very much important for an exam and also important for your understanding are: explain the core ideas of Karl Marx and Max Weber, distinguish between economic determinism and social actions, identify key concepts like class conflict, authority, and bureaucracy, compare Marx and Weber approach to social change. Okay, so these are the questions. Check your progress. You need to read and come for the next class. We will discuss thoroughly. And if you have any queries, let me know. Feel free to call me or call other faculties. All right. So you always feel free to contact us. And we are always open. That's why we teach sociology. You should be always open and don't feel shy to ask any question. So that's it for today. We will see in the next class, next Saturday. and go through your SLM and finish up your assignment as soon as possible, and read all the materials that I have read today, that I have presented today, to understand and to have more knowledge in the aspects of classical sociological theories. That's it for today. Bye bye. Okay, bye.